troglodyte, or the common chimpanzee, is our closest living relative, sharing 99% of our DNA.
Out of all the differences between humans and our furry cousins, our complex brains and immense intellect sets us apart.
But how, why, and when did we develop our brains?
One of the key genes that regulate human brain size, MCPH1, has evolved over time and caused functional changes to the brain, which has contributed to human brain growth over time.
It is estimated that our brains started expanding 1.6 million years ago, now being 3 times larger than any other primates.
With this growth in brain size, humans also developed parts of the brain in which chimps are lacking. Humans have a frontal lobe, a Broca's area, and a Wernicke's area. The frontal lobe controls emotional expression, problem solving, memory, language, judgment, and sexual actions. The Broca's is linked to speech production, and the Wernicke's area is linked to the comprehension of speech.
This means that we have the ability to form and understand language, effectively strengthening our bonds to one another and raising our chances of survival. There are 2 things that people believe sets us apart from animals: our sheer intelligence and the fact that we have something called self-awareness. Memory, judgment, and emotional expression are all attributes for self-awareness, controlled by the frontal lobe. Yes, other primates and animals do demonstrate those mental abilities, but not to the extent as humans. This is why we believe we have a self-awareness greater than any other animal on this planet. The frontal lobe also separates humans because we are able to see more complex problems and find sophisticated ways to fix them. This effectively has led to every human invention in history. But what does all of this do for us as humans in a biological sense? If you observe chimpanzees, they strengthen bonds with one another through grooming and playing, affiliative behavior. It's in our nature from the start to look after one another, even if it did start out as means of survival. But humans show more complex affiliative behavior, some of which with no biological benefit, such as taking care of our old or holding open doors. We also have no natural predators anymore, so there is no need for affiliative behavior in a biological sense. So why do we still look out for one another? E.O. Wilson hypothesized that humans have a hive mindset much like that of ants and bees. This means that we cooperate with one another for the benefit of the community and not just the individual. Chimpanzees also work together and share food in apparently unselfish ways, but in reality will only do it if it benefits themselves. Human children are less selective about who they share with, whereas chimpanzees, though largely only share with close relatives, reciprocating partners, or potential mates. Along with these parts that help us communicate with one another, our brain-to-body ratio is the highest of any primate. Humans' encephalization quotient, the ratio of brain mass to body mass, is between 7.4 and 7.8. Chimpanzees' encephalization quotient is between 2.2 and 2.5. Yet, bigger brains don't necessarily mean higher intelligence or guaranteed survival. For example, the Neanderthals had a larger brain-to-body ratio than Homo sapiens. Scientists know how we developed our brains, but can only hypothesize as to why.
The social brain hypothesis was originally proposed by British anthropologist Robin Dunbar. The hypothesis that Dunbar proposed essentially claims that the complexity of our brains is directly correlated with our brain size, and that our social skills have co-evolved along with our brain growth. Researchers have found over time that our brains have become bigger at the same time that our socialization has evolved. This is because in order for our neurocortex to evolve, which is the part of the cerebral cortex that is responsible for sight and hearing in mammals, the brain must grow in size in order to accommodate the growth of the cerebral cortex. There is no doubt that social and cultural evolution is a huge factor in brain evolution, but it is unlikely that social changes are the only explanation for why our brains have become larger over time. An example of our intelligence not being directly correlated with our brain size is Neanderthals. Neanderthals are our ancestors, living between 500,000 and 200,000 years ago. They had significantly larger brains than modern-day humans do now, but They were not nearly as complex socially or in any other sense in the brain than we are now. Taking all of this into consideration, there must be some kind of ecological factor that contributed to our change in brain size over time. There were likely both ecological and social factors that contributed to the evolution of our brains, and our sociality had to change if we are going to be able to survive the dangers and changes in our environment. While we have tried to get a full understanding as to why our brains have evolved the way that they have, we have not yet answered the question of how our brains evolved. So, what biological factors caused our brains to grow, and how do those factors differ in primates compared to other mammals? In a study done on the functional divergence of the brain size regulating gene known as MCPH1 in 2013, researchers found that there are functional alterations caused by lineage-specific mutations on MCPH1 during the evolution of primates, especially during the origin of humans. The final question is, if all mammals have the MCPH1 gene, why aren't their brains larger too? Studies seem to show that human and primate-specific amino acids could alter MCPH1 transcription of what are called the downstream genes. Because these amino acids can alter transcription, the protein levels can create a functional divergence, which could contribute to a growth in brain size and also explain why primates often have larger brains than that of other animals.
Created using Powtoon.